Well, welcome along to a very special edition of the Marshall Pruett podcast. It's me, Stephen Kilbey, recording an episode of Twisk, but not with Graham Goodwin, not with Marshall Pruett, but with a very special guest. I've got alongside me none other than Ben Keating. Ben, how are you, sir?
It is an honor to be on the Marshall Pruett podcast without visiting with Marshall Pruett.
Well, what we're going to do is a very special Ask Me Anything. So we put out the call for questions the other day and got a huge response. We had to filter them down a little bit. Ben, it's fair to say you're a pretty popular man. There's a lot of questions here. People are very keen.
That's great. I focus on the fact that I do racing for fun. It's important to me that I'm having fun at the racetrack. And as a general rule, that means being a good guy around the racetrack. And I think that people often get that vibe from me, which helps make people feel comfortable. So I think that's great.
Before we get going, describe yourself and your career in a couple of sentences for people who don't know you.
Okay. I am 54 years old now. I started racing when I was 35. And
But you're only 37 now.
Yeah.
I thought you'd been racing for more than 2 years, no?
Yeah. I started off by saying I'm 54. I did club level racing for the first 5 years. Then I jumped up to endurance sports car racing, and that's really where I started to get a lot better. I started to race. So I've been in, a full season of endurance sports car racing for the last 12 years. I did the last year of the American Le Mans Series. I did 6 seasons in IMSA, and then I did 4 seasons where I did a full season of the World Endurance Championship and a full season in IMSA. And at that point in time, I was still learning a lot. I was still growing. And I feel like it kind of had the culmination kind of during COVID. I won the IMSA LMP2 championship in 21 and in 23. And then I also won the World Endurance Championship in 22 and 23. So it was a really good time for me. It's been a crazy ride, and it's still fun.
Yeah, I was going to say, you wouldn't still be doing it if you didn't get some enjoyment out of it.
Absolutely.
So let's get going with some questions then. The first one we've got is from Right Turn Lover, who wants to ask a question about driver gradings.
Excellent.
Says, if the rule makers could actually differentiate between pro and amateur drivers, would you prefer competing in a rule set like that, even if it means that some of the AM drivers that you'd be racing against would be people who are currently graded silver? Or do you find the current system more fair?
So I think the current system is about as good as it gets. To me, it's a hot topic with everyone. I currently really prefer the system or a class that require 1 bronze, 1 silver, and 1 either gold or platinum. As a general rule, the bronze is kind of reserved for the old guys, old people, and the silver is generally reserved for the young drivers that are up and comers who are unknown quantities so far. You're always going to have outliers. You're always going to have people that, there are people who think I should be silver. There are people who think I should be platinum. There's always an opinion out there, and nobody's ever going to agree. I think the drivers in the paddock would all look at different people and go, oh, that guy should be silver, or that guy should be gold, or whatever. But as a general rule across the entire scope of all drivers, I think the FIA gets it pretty close. There are always going to be a few outliers, but they're not outliers long term. They get fixed. You know, you might have a year where you get to be a standout, but I'm pretty happy with the system. I will say I really like the WEC GT class setup where it requires one bronze, one silver, and one pro, because I think you have this full spectrum in that environment of the types of drivers. You know, when I think back to the old days of Grand Am in the United States, or maybe even, you know, before you had driver ratings, before you had to worry about any of that, to me, that's where you get into the situation of somebody just money whipping a class. You know, somebody that's just willing to spend more money than everybody else is. I like this much better. You know, without naming names, you know, I like this much better. I think that this is about as fair of a racing platform or design of a class as you can get.
This next question I really like. It's from El Giorgio. It says, without delving into specific finances, what weighing do manufacturers do on driver skill versus budget for bronze drivers? Would a driver with an extremely large budget be prioritised over one with a smaller budget, depending on their ability? And is this changing as the WC, for instance, is increasing in profile?
It's a really good question. It's hard to talk about without talking about finances, but I'll do my best. It's important to remember that there are three different pieces of the puzzle. You know, you're asking about the OEM or the manufacturer, but there are not supposed to be any manufacturer teams in the GT class of WEC. And so you have, in each case, you have a manufacturer, you have a team, and you have a customer, which in almost every case is a driver. You know, usually it's the bronze, sometimes it's a combination of bronze and silver, but somebody within the team that's driving is paying the bills. I choose to say they're the customer. So you have the customer, the team, and the manufacturer. I would say the manufacturer wants the best driver lineup they can get because they want to win races. The team wants to win, but they want to make money too. So I think the team would like somebody with a really strong budget, which enables for better parts or more testing or whatever. And as far as, you know, the performance, you know, I think we can look back in fairly recent history and say, you know, there are some pretty good examples of manufacturers who have gone out and found found a bronze that should be silver, you know, or found a super bronze and have figured out how to make the budget work for him or her. And so there are definitely examples where the manufacturer has, you know, structured everything to make it easier to have a really competitive team.
Does business-to-business deals come into it as well, rather than raw money to pay for the seat? There's that element.
For me, definitely it does, but that did not come from the manufacturer. You know, for me, a lot of my sponsorship money comes from business-to-business deals with all of my dealerships. But yeah, I can look at the championship in WEC last year, and you know, it's the first year of the new structure, first year of GT3. And I think Porsche as a manufacturer set out from the beginning to say, we can play by these rules, and we're going to put together the best package we can put together. And they did. And they followed the rules. There's nothing to say you can't do that. It can be costly for a manufacturer. But there are quite a bit differences between teams through the paddock. Some teams are really expensive, and some teams are not as expensive. Some teams produce a really strong product, a really good car and a well-engineered car with good strategy. Some teams don't have as good of a product. And so in some cases you kind of get what you pay for, but there are all different levels of budgets. Me as a customer, I have to decide who I want to go with, and that's usually based on budget, but also based on who do I want to be with, who do I want to be around all season, and then it comes down to I as a customer want to put together the best driver lineup I can come put together with, because I want to win. I think it's also a big factor today with the addition of the torque axles. I think the BOP is so much closer than it's ever been before, that I think that changes things. You can't have a driver that is just head and shoulders faster than everybody else. Otherwise, they're just going to slow your car down. Because the BOP is so good now, they can really do a much better job of balancing performance. And so I think that comes into somewhat balancing driver lineups at the same time. You're supposed to be balancing the performance of the car, but if you have a standout driver, you also end up balancing the driver lineup. It's just part of it. So I feel pretty good about the way it is now. I don't think I would want to change it.
Daniel Summerskill is up next, asking about LMP2. He says, after your season in IMSA in 2024 and your decision not to continue full-time in IMSA in 2025, what would need to change, or what would factor into a decision for you to return to LMP2 in IMSA next year or beyond?
Whew. That's a hot topic. So I will say that there's almost no race car I would rather drive than the LMP2. It's a driver's car. It does everything you want it to do. I love driving the LMP2. I love driving with no ABS, all the incredible downforce. It's so much fun to drive an LMP2. The fact is that each racing series has got to figure out how to make it work for them financially. For most series, that's about manufacturers and customers, obviously. And at some level, it becomes about television. So this is my opinion. I'm not telling you what I know, I'm telling you what I think. So what I know is that IMSA does not have a full course yellow. They only have a safety car. So if there's any incident at all, there's no other option for for pausing a race than a safety car. I think, so that's what I know. What I think is that IMSA believes that creates better television because it creates more drama. It creates closer racing. And what I love about WEC is that they have a full course yellow. And what that really means for me is that my drive time matters. So in 2024, in IMSA, not every single time, but for the majority of the season, when I brought the car in after my drive time was finished, the majority of the season I brought the car in the lead. And for the whole season, we finished on one podium. And I was leaving every weekend pissed off because the yellow flag, and the class split caused everybody to stack up. And, IMSA allows a lot of bumping on a restart. And so it seemed like every other race we were getting punted off track in turn one after a restart, and we would come out in 6th or 7th. Mm-hmm. We had a great car, we had great drivers, great performance, but I was leaving every weekend pissed off. And I just decided I'm not going to pay that much money to be pissed off every weekend. It's no secret that I don't love analog brakes. But I decided that I would rather race with analog brakes and have a full course yellow as an option where my drive time really matters in the car. And so that's why I came back to WEC. So what would need to change? I want to feel like my drive time matters when I'm in the car. I'm not there as a spectator, I'm there as a participant. And I want to feel like my time in the car matters. If you have a safety car, after I get out of the car, then whatever advantage I gave the team on track gets wiped away. And I prefer the design in WEC where my drive time matters more often. Not 100% of the time, but more often.
If they kept the same regulations around like full course yellows, but they changed the rules in the sense that, okay, bronze driver has to qualify and a bronze driver has to finish every race, do you think that would work?
You're not going to require a bronze to finish, I don't think. Would it help? Sure. But different bronze drivers want to drive differently. I'm the guy that if I have a 3-hour stint, I want to do all 3 hours at once. So many of the other drivers only want to drive 1 hour at a time. You can't structure it to where a bronze driver has to finish. I don't think. I think WEC has it right. I really like the way WEC does it. And I'll also say that, Eduardo Freitas will not put up with the contact. Whereas, I'm friends with Bo Barfield. I love him, and I think that I'm not saying anything bad about IMSA. I think they put on a really good show. It's fun to watch on TV, and it creates lots of drama. I just don't like it when I'm the one being punted off track.
I can understand that. Theo Cousins says, as this modern era of sports car racing ramps up in competitiveness at the top level, do you feel as a driver there's a real change in the atmosphere in the paddock around the world compared to how it was, say, 5 or 10 years ago? Do you consider it a positive or negative change?
I don't feel like there's much of a change. To me, it feels somewhat the same as it did before. And that's the same in IMSA and or WEC. The major difference in WEC is that there are 12 manufacturers instead of 4 or 5, whatever it was. That's a much higher level of competition, a much higher But instead of having, I'm making up numbers here, but instead of having 4 Ferraris, now you have 2 from every manufacturer. It's the same people. The people are what create the environment, the community. The people are what create the paddock, if you will. And it's the same people. They're just driving different cars. Back when it was only 4 or 5 manufacturers, there were just more of them. There were more Porsches and more Ferraris and more Astons. Now it's just spread across different manufacturers. But I don't really feel like the paddock has changed, even though there are so many more manufacturers. It does feel like it's a higher level because there are so many more manufacturers. There are only 2 GT cars from each manufacturer. Most of the manufacturers have a hypercar program. There's much more investment going into the sport, and that's all raising the level. But as far as the community, which is what I consider the paddock to be, it doesn't feel much different for me.
Mm. Adam Joseph says, if you could choose one car in any class in any year to race at Le Mans, what would you choose? It's a nice fun one. Probably no easier than the previous question.
No, this is really tough because I have such a huge emotional connection. Okay, it's not any car. It's not the cars that I have driven.
Any car. Any class, any car, any year at Le Mans.
Okay. I feel like I've got to go with the I feel like this is the typical answer, but I've got to go with the 1966 Ford GT. I'm a 3rd generation Ford dealer. I won in the Ford GT in 2019. I feel like I need to put an asterisk on that. I was disqualified the next day, but I still won the race. To do that in that way, for Ford to win Le Mans, in 1966 was such a massive deal. So if I could choose anything, I think that would be it. Although I think back to that time and I think, man, how unsafe was it back then? Scary. But that would be it for me.
Damien Peachman says, what's left on your motorsport bucket list in terms of races that you want to compete in?
That's a really good question. At the top level of motorsport, I have achieved everything that was on my bucket list. I would really love to win Daytona again. I won it in 2015. I would really love to win it again. I've gotten a lot of 3rd place finishes there, which is the worst. But I'd love to win Daytona again. The other thing I would say is I own a couple of chump car race cars. I love racing in the chump car series. And I've done the 24 hours of VIR in my chump car for the last 8 years in a row. I've never been on the podium there. We're getting better and better every single year. It's definitely on my bucket list that I want to win a chump car 24-hour race.
I'm sure Damien didn't expect that to be
That's
the answer.
right.
That's fantastic. I love that.
Yep.
Stein Passwant, I've probably absolutely butchered your name there, but so I do apologise. He asks, what's one thing in racing that's better now than it was 10 years ago? And what's one thing in racing that's worse now than it was 10 years ago?
Wow.
Almost philosophical, this one.
10 years ago. Yeah.
There's not enough Dodges racing out there.
Yeah, I mean, interestingly enough, I'm going to give the same answer for both.
Okay.
And that is that, to me, I call them the electronic nannies. But all of the electronics on a race car are so much more developed than they were 10 years ago. The anti-lock brakes are so much better. The traction control is so much better. The way the engine management systems are so much better. To me, when I made a mistake in my race car 10 years ago, you make a mistake in a corner and it cost you a second because you had to gather everything back up again and get going again. Now, today, you make a mistake in a corner and it costs you 2 or 3 tenths because the anti-lock brakes is so good and the traction control is so good. Yes, it was a mistake, but it doesn't cost you that much because the electronic nannies save your ass. And so that's one of the biggest differences. It's a lot safer, and it's a big difference. It's good because it's safer. It's good because, for a driver that does not have as much skill, it makes them better. It makes them closer. And so it makes for closer racing, safer racing. For me, it's also what I think is worse about racing than it was 10 years ago. Because 10 years ago, I worked so hard at learning how to be a better race car driver. And I'll just use brakes as the example. But, I worked so hard, whether it was driving a GTE car or driving the LMP2, to learn how to get really, really good on brakes, on braking without ABS. And I got so good at that. That was like my special superpower as a bronze driver. And that was the big separator for me. I could brake later, and I was just better at managing the brakes than my other bronze competitors. And that was a big differentiator in lap time. Now, I feel like I look slow out there. Because of the electronic nannies, everybody is a hero under braking. You hit it as hard as you can hit it and let the computer do the work. While it's better in some ways, I kind of feel like it has taken a little bit of the soul of the old school driving technique or the character out of the art of racing.
The randomist, and this is someone who's clearly been paying very close attention to your career. Do you have any plans to race a BMW M8 GTE when they become eligible for Le Mans Classic, with them being the only GTE, with BMW being the only GTE manufacturer you didn't race for during your time driving?
Wow, that's pretty impressive study. I would say no. I would love to do it, but my guess is that I own many of the race cars that I've had through history, and I have a lot of spare parts. I'm going to be okay with letting the M8 GTE BMW get away from me. But I'm really looking forward to racing my C8R GTE Corvette, or my GT3 AMG, my GT3 Viper, or my GTSR GTE Viper. I've still got all of those cars. I've got lots of spare parts, and I'm looking forward to racing those cars. I care more about the nostalgia of really being able to go back and race the cars that I've raced in the past, rather than trying to, knock down the last pin. The only car I didn't race.
I like this question, and you'll like it too because it's from a fellow Aggie. It says, howdy from Texas A&M University. As a prominent business person, do teams and manufacturers have the tools to measure if their racing efforts are bringing money in indirectly? For example, does Chevrolet have any vague idea how many more yellow Corvettes they sell because of the Corvette race team?
Well, howdy. I'll start off with that. I will say that, I'm a car dealer, so I race what I sell. I can definitely tell you that, there is, I was a Viper racer before I became a Viper retailer. I became the #1 volume Viper retailer in the world from 2009 to 2017. That was as a result of the relationships I made at the racetrack. And so there is definitely something to the idea of win on Sunday, sell on Monday. For me, that is more of a personal relationship with those fans. I like to go to the Q&A sessions at a race where they have all the Corvette drivers there because I want to build a relationship with those people because those are the people that are going to be buying Corvettes and they want to buy one from me. And so it really works for me as an individual. I can't speak for the manufacturers. I can tell you that at my Chevrolet dealerships, I don't have any yellow Corvettes in stock. We still sell more Corvettes because of my racing. But specifically about yellow ones, not so much. I'm sure the manufacturer has to pay attention to,
return on investment.
The return on investment, the marketing value, it's advertising, and for the most part, it's customers like me that are paying for their advertising. For the most part, obviously they have manufacturer fees, and it costs money for them to build race cars, but there has to be a good return on that, or a return on that. But it doesn't necessarily have to be a good return. A lot of manufacturers use it to showcase their engineering prowess, or to showcase, technologies, literally to develop things for their road cars. But I would say I believe there's a return on that investment for the manufacturer, but I can't answer for them. I can definitely say that there's a return for me.
Thank you, Ethan. Next is Esteban Garcia. This is a nice one, especially after the visit that we paid to Keating Chevrolet earlier today. What's your best memory of racing with Nico Verone?
I had lunch with Nico today at Keating Chevrolet as we both sat in the GT C8R Corvette that we won with in 2023. A great memory. My greatest memory, I think, two things. They're all related to Le Mans of 2023. In practice at Le Mans, in the practice right before qualifying, like immediately before qualifying, Nico lost it in Tête Rouge and wrecked into the wall. And the poor kid was just crushed. I mean, you look like somebody killed his dog or something. He was just totally defeated. And then miraculously, there was a red flag during qualifying that delayed qualifying, and the team got the car rebuilt in just enough time for us to do like one lap at the end of qualifying, and Nikki Katzberg got us into hyperpole, and it was an incredible experience. But that's not necessarily a super positive memory for Nico, but for me and my relationship of racing with Nico, it was a positive experience because of how much he cared, and it all turned out good in the end.
He bounced back unbelievably quickly from that.
That's right. And so the other thing, which is something that I think very few people know about, but we had decided that that I would not do any night driving, and that Nico was going to drive all night. Nico and Nikki were going to drive all night. And if you remember, in that race in 2023, the weather was atrocious. I think over half of the field did not make it to the end of the race because it was very spotty rain and very heavy rain. The weather was just terrible. And if I don't have confidence, I'm pretty slow. I don't want to wreck the car. And so we decided, okay, let's leave Ben to drive in the morning in happy hour on Sunday morning. He can do his drive time. We'll put Nico in the car, see if we can get any of our laps back, because we were down 2 laps and we needed to get laps back. And you're not going to get laps back with Keating behind the wheel, was kind of the idea. I went to bed at midnight, and with the expectation that I was going to wake up at 5 a.m. to get ready to go back in the car. I laid down for about 20 minutes. They came knocking at my door. Ben, we need you in the car right now. And I didn't have any idea what had happened. But Nico got lightheaded coming down the stairs in hospitality, passed out on the stairs and fell down the stairs.
I did not know this.
And because he had blacked out and fell down the stairs, they didn't want to put him in the car because they wasn't sure he was going to be okay. So they sent Nico to the medical center, and they needed a driver in the car right now. And so I got in the car, and I drove all through the night, and in terrible conditions, and I did a good job. I was very happy with my performance. But I really think that what allowed us to win that race was the fact that Nico was able to be in the car during happy hour when all the other bronzes were in the car, the way we had planned to do. All the other bronzes were in the car, and Nico was so fast on Sunday morning in happy hour, which that's the fastest time of the track. The air is cool and the track's got a lot of rubber, but Nico was a rock star on Sunday morning. So it turned out, I don't believe anything happens by accident. There are no coincidences. I think that we were just blessed for that race, and it happened exactly the way it was supposed to happen. But it was a special experience for Nico and I as teammates. We had a whole plan put together that all went in the bin, and it happened the way it was supposed to happen.
So Lee Purnell, Lance Schneider, Zanian, and Mark Eakins have all asked variations of the same question. So I'm going to condense it into one. They all want to know, and I think you're probably mentally prepared for a question about this, about Pro-Am or bronze hypercar formats in Asian Le Mans Series and making the jump into GTP with a privateer effort. I mean, we have seen you in a GTP before.
That's right. So, some of them may not know this, though. And so what I would say is that I had great success in the LMP2 in 2021, 2022, 2023. So in 2023, I raced at Daytona in both the LMP2 and in the DPI. The year before Hypercar. That's right, 2023, I think, was the last year of DPI. And I raced in the Cadillac for JDC Miller Motorsports. We got third place overall at at Daytona. And it was a great experience. Loved it. The very next year, JDC Miller switched to the Porsche 963 Hypercar. It was the very first race of the Hypercar in IMSA. And because we had such a good experience in the DPI, they called me and said, hey, what about doing the Porsche 963? I said, great. And so I went and I tested in the car, I did the roar, and I raced in the car. And, I think the series would not be happy to hear me say all of this, but I'm going to say it anyway. As a whole, I understand why the FIA, has decided to do the hypercars as hybrid, because we're developing technology for the future, clean energy, so on and so forth. But all the hypercars are hybrid. Which means they're heavy. And compared to the LMP2, the cars are much heavier than the LMP2. Because they're so much heavier, they have to have a harder tire. And with a harder tire, you have less grip. It just lasts longer, but you have less overall grip. And so I'll just say that I did not enjoy driving the hypercar. I did not enjoy a heavier car with less grip. I felt like it was so nerve-wracking. It was difficult to keep on track. And I think if the pros didn't work with manufacturers and didn't get paid to drive them, I think they would all tell you the same thing. It's a very difficult car to drive. It's more difficult to drive than it needs to be. The LMP2 is so much better of a car in terms of race car design. And I just don't have any desire to drive in a hypercar anymore. Okay, some of that, it's the first race for the car. I know it's been developed a lot since then. I know it's better than it was. It's still really, really difficult. Mm-hmm. And I talk to all the pro drivers about it all the time, checking in. How is it now? So I don't really have a desire because I don't like driving the car. I don't really have a desire because the budgets are so much higher, and it's really hard for my retail customers to relate to me driving a prototype.
On that basis, do you think there can be a future for privateer hypercar with bronze drivers in Asian Le Mans series, like they're trying to get off the ground?
Yes. I think it's going to be a shit show. I'm just telling you, the car is so hard to drive that
P2s are going to beat them potentially.
I feel I'm pretty good with car control, especially in like an LMP2. I don't think. I think there are a lot of bronze drivers out there who will go that direction because they think they will like it, because they can afford to be there. And I think it will be a disaster because the car is so hard to drive.
Slightly more lighthearted now. GT Gamer 468 says, "Who's your favourite teammate you've ever driven with?"
Woo, man!
You'll be very careful with this answer.
Yeah,
You've driven with some serious
you can't
talent.
ask me that. You know, you're
It's like
supposed to
trying to
love
choose
all
with
your
your kids.
children equally. You know,
We need a ranking 1 to 10.
yeah. I can't do that. I will say that my teammates, who I'm teammates with, is my number one priority on what I go do. I do this for fun. I'm not going to race with an asshole. I'm just not. I'm only going to be around people that I enjoy being with. I have had incredible teammates, and I can go down the whole list, and I have a lot of really good relationships with teammates, manufacturers, teams, because I prioritize being with good people. I'm not going to select just one because I love all my children equally.
Stein Passpont says, in 2021 you raced a blue Aston Martin GTE with a now infamous livery, especially when the door was open, cutting off the 4 Horsemen Racing logo.
Yeah.
At what point did you realise what it said, and what was the team's reaction? Or was it the plan?
I was involved in the design of the livery with the sponsor. I didn't realize it until it showed up on social media. And there's an old saying, there's no such thing as bad publicity as long as they spell your name right. And so it got extra notoriety and extra play because everyone thought it was funny of what it said with the door open, and I enjoy the extra coverage. So we chose not to change any of it.
In that vein, James Counter says, what's your favourite car and livery combination that you've raced?
There's something special to me about the Wins Ford GT.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, the something about the purple on that particular car really works well.
And we're down to the last couple of questions. I'm going to throw one in because there's something that's on my mind right now, talking to you here. If you didn't spend so much time and energy and put so much dedication and passion into racing outside of your business commitments and your family life, what would you be doing?
So it's some level of competition. Competition is just what feeds my soul. And so, maybe racing bicycles, maybe, I don't know. I just know it would be some level of competition because I enjoy it. It's fun. I enjoy strategy. We were, it's a holiday weekend in the United States. We were at the ranch with my wife and Danny Yunkadea and his wife Allie. We played Rumicube. I won the last 3 games. I'm quite happy about this. It's that type of stuff that feeds my soul, but it's also what makes everyone else not to want to play games with me.
Final question. This is from Lance Schneider. Says, which podcast do you regret doing more? Dinner with Racers or this one?
That sounds like a Graham Goodwin question.
It does actually, doesn't it?
I would say I don't regret doing either of them. I love them. I think it's such a great way to create community and flavor character in our racing environment, outside of what the timing and scoring says on Sunday night. It's really all about the people. And I love what Dinner with Racers does. And I love what Marshall Pruett, Graham Goodwin do. I think it's all really good for the sport. And to be honest, it's an honor to be on the show. I enjoy answering the questions. I enjoy the interaction with the fans.
Good variety.
Yeah.
Good variety in this. Really fun.
Good stuff.
Well, that brings us to the end. I will thank first the partners of the podcast, the Justice Brothers and Toronto Motorsports, but I have to put a huge thank you to you, Ben. I mean, just in general.
It's an honor to be here.
Yeah,
I love doing it, and I want to thank all the fans who asked the questions. Good stuff there.
Yeah.
I enjoyed talking about it.
Really good stuff. But yeah, thank you so much, Ben. I mean, the last 24 hours have been a whirlwind, and I know how busy it is. We're here just before your home race in the WC, and I wish you, of course, and I'm sure all the listeners do, wish you the best of luck this weekend. But you're an absolute gentleman. Genuinely, of all the hundreds of thousands of people that I come across in this sport, you're right there at the top.
Yeah,
you
thank
really
you.
are a gentleman.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your time. We've kept it under an hour, which for a Marshall Pruett podcast is probably a record. So I think
all right.
that is remarkable. So
Excellent.
We'll sign off here. Thank you very much, Ben, and
Thank
best
you.
of luck this weekend.
Thank you very much.